Chapter 261 Fight Poison with Poison. When Zhou Wen stabbed the monster, it burst into a mass of black liquid once again. Zhou Wen hurriedly summoned his pet to block it. With most of his other pets killed in action, Zhou Wen summoned the weak Dr. Darkness to block the black liquid. Zhou Wen originally imagined that Dr. Darkness would be killed instantly, but to his surprise, Dr. Darkness's body turned black due to the virus but didn't immediately die. Dr. Darkness used a certain technique and a syringe appeared in one hand. He aimed the syringe at his arm and stabbed it in. Zhou Wen only saw the liquid in the syringe being pushed into his body before he lost the luxury of time to look further. The monster had taken form and attacked again. After dealing with him for a while, Zhou Wen was gradually left at the disadvantage. At that moment, he realized that the Dr. Darkness had rushed over to help him in combat. The scalpel in his hand shimmered with a thin blade beam. Although it was useless, it left Zhou Wen somewhat astonished. Even the three-eyed golden warrior and the golden armored beast couldn't withstand the terrifying poison after they made contact with the black liquid. Even if they turned into armor, they would still be corroded. Dr. Darkness's body wasn't as strong as the golden warrior and gold armored beast, yet he still survived after making contact with the black liquid. Furthermore, after a short period of time, he became energetic and lively. It was as if he had never been injured. Zhou Wen wasn't a match for the monster, so he was quickly forced to block the black liquid that splattered out from the monster's body. This time, Zhou Wen summoned Dr. Darkness to help him block it. To his surprise, Dr. Darkness became even stronger this time. His body was stained with the black liquid, only to turn black from contact and then quickly recover their rosy colors. Apart from the corrosion of his flesh, he didn't suffer any damage from the virus. This left Zhou Wen very surprised. Although the black liquid on the monster's body was highly corrosive, it wasn't lethal enough. Zhou Wen still had a way to deal with it. However, the virus in the black liquid was something Zhou Wen was unable to defend against. He was basically killed by the virus every time. Yet, Dr. Darkness was immune to it and seemed to have adequate resistance against the corrosive forces of the black liquid. As Zhou Wen was so surprised, that moment of distraction allowed one drop of the monster's black liquid to splatter onto him. Black gas immediately arose from the blood-colored avatar's body as it rapidly expanded. Zhou Wen knew something was amiss as he suddenly recalled the scene of Dr. Darkness stabbing himself with a syringe. He immediately thought of something. Dr. Darkness, use fight poison with poison. Zhou Wen gave the order. Without any hesitation, Dr. Darkness carried out Zhou Wen's order. A syringe appeared in his hand and stabbed the blood-colored avatar's body, injecting the poison into the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou Wen immediately felt a spasming pain spread throughout his body, but the pain slowed the spreading speed of the monster's virus, preventing him from dying as quickly as before. It actually works. Zhou Wen was only giving it a try, he never expected it to be that effective. Although the pain was intense, he didn't die. However, the poison could only temporarily withstand the virus and prevent the virus from spreading within his body. It had not been eliminated. From the looks of it, Dr. Darkness isn't afraid of the virus solely because of fight poison with poison. It has a lot to do with his own physique and life providence. Zhou Wen persisted for a while longer before being sprayed by the black liquid once again. The virus in his body exceeded the poison that Dr. Darkness had injected into him, and the virus began to spread again. Zhou Wen hurriedly got Dr. Darkness to inject him with more poison using fight poison with poison. After injecting 2 batches of poison, the virus in Zhou Wen's body was stabilized again. However, the poison that Dr. Darkness had injected was extremely stimulating for his body. It made Zhou Wen feel pain as if he was being pricked by needles, and he nearly stumbled to the ground. The blood-colored avatar was ultimately killed. It was not that the monster had ripped off his head, but that he had made contact with some more of the black liquid. After injecting the poison again, the blood-colored avatar could no longer take it physically. From the looks of it, fight poison with poison cannot be used constantly. After injecting more than a certain amount of poison, it will cause tremendous damage to the body. Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed as he originally imagined that he had found a way to deal with the monster. From the looks of it, it was only temporary. On the other hand, Dr. Darkness's resistance to the virus was getting higher and higher. He could actually ignore the virus of the blood rain and the monster. Unfortunately, he was still at the legendary stage and had few combat skills. The monster could easily rip its head off. Otherwise, with his abilities, he would have perfectly countered such monsters. Dr. Darkness was an epic in the first place. It was only because Zhou Wen had insufficient primordial energy in his incubation that he had fallen to the legendary stage. When he evolved into a mature body, he might be able to restrain that monster. Although he had such thoughts, Zhou Wen knew that it was impossible for Dr. Darkness to evolve into his mature form in such a short period of time. The abilities of Dr. Darkness allowed Zhou Wen to gain the ability to circle around the monster a little more. However, fight poison with poison was just too painful. His organs felt like they were being pricked by needles, something ordinary people would find difficult to tolerate. After injecting the poison a few times, Zhou Wen discovered something strange. Dr. Darkness's fight poison with poison seemed to have more resistant traits against the virus. In the beginning, Zhou Wen had needed an injection after making contact with 1 or 2 drops of black liquid. However, after a few times, Zhou Wen discovered that Dr. Darkness needed very little poison to put the virus at bay. Furthermore, its restraining effects were improving. He's growing. The virus here has made Dr. Darkness rapidly grow. Zhou Wen immediately understood what was happening. When Zhou Wen realized this, he consciously allowed Dr. Darkness to come into contact with even more poison. The blood rain which was everywhere and the black liquid on the monster's body were all candidates to be his nutrients. As the poison that Dr. Darkness came into contact with increased, his resistance towards the virus increased. Apart from his physical traits being inferior to the monster, he eventually became immune to the monster's virus. Furthermore, his usage of fight poison with poison became more and more effective. As a result, one injection from Dr. Darkness after the blood-colored avatar made contact with a few drops of black liquid ended up being an overdose, causing the blood-colored avatar to be poisoned to death. Zhou Wen once again came in front of the monster. When Dr. Darkness helped him block the black liquid, the system suddenly produced a notification: Dr. Darkness has reached the growth requirement and evolved into a mature body. Following the system's notification, a strange change occurred to Dr. Darkness's body. White streams of light emitted from his body. The white doctor robe flared up with the streams of light as a terrifying aura erupted from him. Article 262 of 1597. Light arose from Dr. Darkness's body, forming a shadow projection of a doctor over his head. It was none other than the Dr. Soul Life Soul which Zhou Wen had seen before. Seeing the monster charge at him again, Dr. Darkness raised the scalpel in his hand while Dr. Soul moved as well. He held the scalpel formed from light and stabbed it into the monster. The monster's originally running body seemed to be nailed to the ground as it stopped moving. Zhou Wen was delighted. He knew that Dr. Darkness had returned to the epic stage. He finally had a powerful fighter who could be used. Bam! However, the monster's body turned into black liquid and exploded. Dr. Soul pinning him down with the scalpel shadow had instantly lost its effect. However, the black liquid of the monster was useless against Dr. Darkness. It once again condensed into a monster and in an instant, it was behind Dr. Darkness. It wanted to twist Dr. Darkness's head off with its advantage of speed. But now, Dr. Darkness had evolved to the epic stage and he could keep up. With a slight flash of his body, he managed to dodge its hands. At the same time, the scalpel in his left hand flashed rapidly, slicing across the monster's body continuously. In the blink of an eye, the scalpel diced the monster's body into several pieces. However, the monster's body was not affected at all. It quickly merged into one and pounced towards Dr. Darkness once again. Zhou Wen became a bystander in the battle between the two epic creatures. Taking this opportunity, he glanced at the information of Dr. Darkness after his evolution. Dr. Darkness, Epic. Life Providence, Golden Left Hand. Life Soul, Dr. Soul. Strength, 27. Speed, 40. Constitution, 29. Primordial Energy, 39. Talent Skill, Scalpel, Fight Poison with Poison, Light of Penetration. Companion Form, Soul. It was somewhat different from the original Epic Dr. Darkness's attributes. The 4 basic stats had increased, but they were still mainly concentrated on speed and primordial energy. This was not much of a change. The biggest transformation was his companion form. Dr. Darkness didn't have a companion form previously, but he did now. Zhou Wen didn't quite understand what a soul companion form was. While Zhou Wen was thinking about this, he suddenly saw a strange light shoot out from Dr. Darkness's eyes. Dr. Soul's eyes lit up as well. With that, 4 beams shone on the monster's body, overlapping each other like a spotlight, illuminating the monster's body. The beam of light didn't have any lethality. Zhou Wen knew that it was likely the light of penetration skill of Dr. Darkness, but he didn't know how effective it was. In the next second, Dr. Darkness moved. He held the scalpel in his left hand and disappeared like a magic trick. He was incredibly fast as he moved the scalpel with almost indiscernible trajectories. The monster that flew towards him was stabbed in the waist. This time, the monster didn't explode into black liquid. Zhou Wen thought he heard something shatter inside its body. In the next second, the monster took a few steps back and exploded, turning into a pool of black liquid. However, this time he wasn't reborn again. Instead, he slowly merged into the mud, leaving only a crystal behind. A notification popped up in the game: killed epic creature Wangliang. Discovered dimensional crystal. However, Zhou Wen couldn't help but be taken aback when he saw the crystal's name clearly. The dimensional crystal was different from what he had seen before. The small black crystal size wasn't obvious in-game. He estimated it to be about the size of a quail egg, but its name was a little odd. Poison Crystal, 7. Zhou Wen got the blood-colored avatar to pick up the virus crystal, and the game system immediately asked if he wanted to absorb it. Zhou Wen chose to absorb it, and soon, a strange force fused into his body. Then, he looked at the blood-colored avatar's attributes and realized that its stats had changed from 4 different types to 5. The new attribute was poison, and its value was 7. Zhou Wen didn't know much about epic matters, he didn't know what the poison stat was for either. However, he soon discovered that he had obtained quite a lot of benefits after obtaining a 7-valued poison stat. This was because he could directly withstand the blood rain and not be reduced to a lunatic by the poison. From the looks of it, the poison stat gives me quite a good viral immunity. However, I still need to further test how strong this resistance is. Zhou Wen was in a good mood as he continued walking forward with Dr. Darkness. He had already wasted too much time here. He had to rush to the ruins as soon as possible. After walking for more than half a kilometer, a monster appeared in front of him. Zhou originally imagined that it was a Wangliang, but upon careful inspection, something was amiss. The monster that appeared wasn't a Wangliang, but rather a very strange creature. The creature's head looked like a worm with no horns on its head. Its body was like a lion's, its tail like a crocodile's. Its body was also covered in crocodile-like skin. Zhou Wen's heart stirred. The one I killed previously was a Wangliang. Could this be the Kai from Chime Wangliang? It was common to use the term Chime Wangliang to describe monsters of the mountains and rivers in the East District. Even if one didn't recognize the word, most people in the East District could guess that this phrase was used to describe all kinds of bad people. And with these 4 words all having the ghost radical in their characters, it meant a kind of ghost or monster. Based on what Zhou Wen knew, the term Chime Wangliang represented 3 types of monsters. Wangliang referred to the ghost of plagues according to legend. There were also tales that he was one of the legendary 5 emperors of ancient times, Sun Xu's 3rd son that had drowned to death. Although it was a tale and couldn't be taken seriously, since a Wangliang had appeared, such a strange creature in front of him might just be the Kai of Chime Wangliang. This was because the legendary Mei or succubus was a ghost found in mountains and forests. It was a wood spirit that didn't match the monster's image in front of him. On the other hand, it was a beast-like ghost. There were also tales that it was one of the 9 sons of the dragon. It did resemble the monster in front of him. However, these were tales. They might not be the same as the dimensional creature in front of him. Seeing the monster rushing over, Zhou Wen ordered Dr. Darkness to charge forward. Dr. Soul also condensed a scalpel made of light as he stabbed the glimmering weapon at the monster. Roar. The monster let out a roar as black flames burst out from its body, transforming it into a life soul that was in the form of a black dragon. Without waiting for Dr. Soul to react, it swallowed him in one bite. Ah! Dr. Darkness cried out in pain. A powerhouse's pain of having a life soul devoured was an excruciating pain that was akin to having his heart dug out. While Dr. Darkness was in pain, the monster pounced on him and swallowed him. Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar and circled to the back of the monster with ghost steps, stabbing its soft waist with his Overlord spear. However, before Overlord spear could stab into the monster's waist, the black dragon resembling life soul spewed out black smoke at the blood-colored avatar. This resembled a volcanic eruption as it enveloped the blood-colored avatar's body. Article 263 of 1597. Without a word, Zhou Wen summoned his yin-yang purple air bell and aimed it at the black smoke. The black smoke seemed to be sucked away as it surged into the yin-yang purple air bell. In the blink of an eye, it was sucked clean. The monster seemed somewhat puzzled as it stared at the yin-yang purple air bell with its strange eyes. Zhou Wen held the bell and shook it at the monster. Black smoke immediately gushed out from the bell, enveloping the monster's body. When the black smoke touched its scales, it immediately seeped in. The monster's eyes rolled back as it collapsed to the ground. Holy shit, is this black smoke that powerful? It even poisoned the monster to death. Zhou Wen was alarmed, but upon closer inspection, he realized that the monster hadn't died. It had only fallen asleep. The monster had fallen asleep and its life soul seemed to lose control. It floated above its head motionlessly. How could Zhou Wen miss such a good opportunity? He charged forward with the Overlord spear in hand and stabbed the monster in the abdomen. Ever Victorious showed its effects as the tip of the spear stabbed into the monster's abdomen. A hole was torn open in the monster's abdomen and black blood immediately flowed out. It was unknown what the black smoke strength was, but after having such a huge hole stabbed through, the monster didn't react at all despite bleeding excessively. It continued sleeping soundly, leaving Zhou Wen astonished. Zhou Wen naturally wasn't going to be merciful with it. He stabbed it again and again, stabbing at it for a total of 18 times before the monster was finally dead. The black dragon-like life soul also shattered. A notification popped up in-game, killed the epic creature, Kai. Discovered dimensional crystal. Zhou Wen saw that the dimensional crystal that dropped was a strength crystal with 32 points. Although its value was very high to him, Zhou Wen's limit was at 21. It was useless no matter how good it was. After absorbing the 32 valued strength crystal, Zhou Wen felt that he was brimming with strength. His earlier fatigue was wiped clean, but his strength stat didn't increase. It remained at 21 points. Since the Wangliang and Kai have appeared, there should be a Mei. I wonder what kind of creature the Mei is. Zhou Wen was filled with curiosity. However, he was not that bored to the point of deliberately searching for the Mei. He headed for the ruins through the blood rain before he encountered another Wangliang. With a dark doctor to restrain it, it was rather easy to kill it. However, it didn't drop any poison crystals and only dropped an ordinary speed crystal. It was useless for Zhou Wen now. As he charged towards the ruins, he encountered several Wangliang and Kai. However, he didn't see the Mei, nor did anything useful drop. After battling the entire night, Zhou Wen finally arrived at the spot where the map marked the ruins. He wasn't in a rush to get the blood-colored avatar to walk over when he saw the broken stone pillars and the stone walls that stood in the middle of the blood rain not far away. Instead, he took the information Sheng had handed out before leaving and carefully read it again. According to the information, the League had sent a few more groups of people to the ruins to find Ouyang Ting and the others. However, when they entered the ruins, they died for no explicable reason. Even epic experts were no exception. Until now, they had not found the reason. It was also because of this that they felt that the former principal and the others were already dead inside. Hence, they didn't send any more search and rescue teams. Help came only when the Yin family received the news. Zhou Wen observed the ruins from afar, hoping to find any clues no matter how minute. However, there were ancient symbols on them that he couldn't decipher. No matter how he looked at them, he couldn't tell anything. I'll still have to risk my life to scout the way. Zhou Wen summoned Dr. Darkness and Ghost Bride. Together with Three-Eyed Golden Warrior and Gold Armored Beast, they entered the ruins as the blood-colored avatar remained outside. Golden Warrior and Gold Armored Beast were pets with powerful bodies, while Ghost Bride had the body of a ghost. Dr. Darkness was an epic pet, so Zhou Wen wanted to see who would die among them. Through this, he could determine how terrifying the powers were inside. The four pets carefully walked into the ruins and slowly explored. After walking for a short distance, a cracking sound was heard as the Golden Warrior's head flew up from his neck as he died instantly. Just like what was written in the information. Dying from a beheading. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. Although he had read it very carefully, he didn't see any creatures appear. Nor did he notice any power fluctuations. It was as though an invisible executioner had cleaved off the Golden Warrior's head. Crack. As Zhou Wen was pondering over the matter, Dr. Darkness's head fell to the ground and he died on the spot. He didn't put up any resistance just because he was an epic creature. His death was equally clean. Zhou Wen still couldn't see what was in the ruin. He couldn't even tell how Dr. Darkness died. Not long later, Gold Armored Beast suffered the same fate. Similarly, it had no chance to react. It died quickly, and in less than 30 minutes Zhou Wen's 3 companion beasts, including the epic Dr. Darkness, had been killed silently. Only Ghost Bride remained floating forward. Ghost Bride continued forward for a while, but her head wasn't chopped off. This delighted Zhou Wen. It looks like that power is ineffective against ghosts. Zhou Wen didn't dare enter, but with Ghost Bride around, she could scout the path for him. Zhou Wen didn't hesitate any further as he sped her up. He began his carpet search of the ruins, hoping to discover something. Perhaps it was because the power in the ruins was too terrifying that even Chai Wangling didn't appear. There was only a dead silence. Apart from the blood rain outside, all that was left were those decrepit ancient buildings. Zhou Wen controlled Ghost Bride to get her to search for clues in all sorts of rundown buildings. This was a game, so he definitely couldn't find the former principal and company here. However, it was impossible for them to vanish into thin air. They must have gone somewhere. All Zhou Wen wanted to do was find the place. At the encampment, the soldiers guarding the door suddenly saw someone in front of them rushing over like madmen. They hurriedly raised their rifles. Halt. Don't move any further, or else we'll shoot. A soldier hurriedly warned when he saw that the person was charging over. However, that person didn't stop and continued running like a madman. Just as the soldier was about to deliver a warning shot, he suddenly realized that the person was wearing the same military uniform as them. However, because he was covered in blood, most of the parts of his military uniform had turned dark red. It's Lu Chengzi. Didn't he follow Madame Lan to the ancient battlefield? Why is he running back alone? Where's Madame Lan and the rest? One of the soldiers took a closer look and instantly recognized who that person was. He was shocked and quickly went forward to welcome him. Lu Chengzi, who was covered in blood, pounced over when he saw the two of them. The two soldiers quickly held him up. Quick! Quick, tell Adjutant in. Madame is in danger. Save her immediately. If there's any delay, it'll be too late, Lu Chengzi said anxiously as he coughed out blood. Article 264 of 1597. Lu Chengzi, what happened? Lu Yunxian asked as he looked at Lu Chengzi, who was being treated on a sickbed. Lu Chengzi's injuries were horrifying. Under the treatment of a companion beast with healing abilities, his life was saved. However, his injuries still required a longer period of treatment. Commander, quickly tell Adjutant in that Madame Lan is trapped in the ruins. Quickly send someone to help her. It will be too late if we delay any longer, Lu Chengzi said anxiously. Adjutant and entered the ancient ruins 2 days ago. Didn't you encounter them? Shu Wen asked. Lu Chengzi was stunned when he heard that. He shook his head and said, Adjutant and has already entered the ruins. Why didn't I see them? I escaped from the ruins and rushed back with all my might, but I didn't see anyone. That's strange. Tell me clearly what happened to Madame Lan, Lu Yun asked first. Lu Chengzi hurriedly said, we entered the ancient battlefield with Madame Lan and encountered many strange things. However, under Madame Lan's lead, we managed to arrive at the ruins where old Mr. Ouyang and the rest studied without any mishaps. That place had already become extremely bizarre. Many of our companion beasts were beheaded there. Finally, Madame Lan came up with a way to safely enter the ruins. Due to the excessive loss of blood, Lu Chengzi felt a little thirsty as he swallowed his saliva before continuing. In the ruins, we found an entrance that leads underground. There was also a mark left behind by old Mr. Ouyang. In the beginning, we used many of our companion beasts to scout the area, but nothing happened. However, when Madame Lan led the group down, the entrance to the passageway was sealed. The few of us who stayed outside did all we could to open the stone door. And then, Shu Wen pressed. Lu Chengzi panted a few times before continuing. 3 hours later, the stone door at the entrance opened automatically and old Chu rushed out. By then, old Chu was covered in blood and I almost couldn't see the color of his military uniform. He rushed over and directly handed me a strange stone artifact. In a very urgent tone, he told me to pass the stone artifact to Adjutant N and get Adjutant and to lead men into the ruins to save Madame Lan or it would be too late. He was in such a hurry that he spoke in a delirious manner. He said that the stone artifact is a key that opens some doors. The stone artifact needs to be returned before the door can be opened to save Madame Lan. We have to be fast, or it will be too late. He kept repeating himself, and the few people we left guarding the spot couldn't say a word. Just as they were about to ask questions, old Chu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and passed away. What about the stone artifact? Lu Yongxian asked. Lu Chengzi wore a look of guilt. Even people like Madame Lan and old Chu were unable to deal with the situation in the stone passageway, so it would be impossible for us to do so. After our discussion, we planned on returning with the stone artifact and report the situation. However, the ancient battlefield is simply too terrifying. A few of our brothers died while I barely survived. The stone artifact was swallowed by a dimensional creature with a worm's head and a lion's body along the way. It's all my fault for not being able to hold onto it. Do you still remember where that dimensional creature is? Lu Yongxian asked after some thought. I roughly know the location, but I wonder if the dimensional creature is still there, Lu Chengzi said. Alright, Shu Wen, do your best to treat Lu Chengzi's injuries. Everyone else, prepare to be on standby. Prepare to set off anytime, Lu Yongxian said. Commander Lu, since Adjutant N has already gone, it probably won't be of much use for us to enter, right? A middle-aged officer asked. Lu Yongxian said when Lu Chengzi and company returned, they didn't encounter Adjutant N. Therefore, even if Adjutant N reached the ruins, he wouldn't know of the stone artifact's existence, much less know that it has been swallowed by a dimensional creature. We have to deliver it to him. We can't do much, but killing a dimensional creature shouldn't be difficult. Furthermore, Lu Chengzi is still familiar with the situation. There shouldn't be any major problems. Go and prepare, said Lu Yongxian in a tone that didn't allow for doubts. Right now, Lu Yongxian was the highest-ranking officer. Since he had already decided, no one doubted him. They went back to prepare to enter the ancient battlefield. Shu Wen also wanted to go, but Lu Yongxian rejected her request. Lu Yongxian wanted her to stay behind to take care of Zhou Wen to ensure that nothing happened to him. Commander, just let me go. My healing abilities can reduce the number of casualties. Zhou Wen can just be taken off by the female soldiers at the medical corp, Shu Wen requested once again. Stay behind to take care of Zhou Wen. That's an order. If anything happens to him, you will be court-martialed. There's absolutely no room for negotiation, Lu Yongxian said firmly. He had said it in a relaxed manner earlier, but he knew that the ancient battlefield was very dangerous. They would be placed in grave danger by heading in, and he didn't want Shu Wen to take the risk. Shu Wen opened her mouth but was at a loss for words. She was a soldier, so she could only obey Lu Yongxian's orders. However, she felt extremely indignant. Zhou Wen was gaming in his room, but he wore the truth listener earring at all times, so he could clearly hear the sounds nearby. When Lu Chengzi returned, the place was a little far from where Zhou Wen bunked. Zhou Wen didn't hear it, but when Lu Yongxian and the others prepared to set off, he heard the commotion. When he came out to take a look, Lu Yongxian and the rest had already boarded their vehicles and set off. 2 jeeps and a huge truck were driving out of the camp. Zhou Wen realized what had happened. Seeing Shu Wen standing at the entrance of the camp, he walked over and asked, Head Nurse Shu, what happened? Where are Commander Lu and the rest going? Why are you asking so much? Do you dare to go to the ancient battlefield to rescue lives? Go back and play your game, Shu Wen snapped. Shu Wen believed that if it wasn't for Zhou Wen, she wouldn't have been left behind. Rescue lives in the ancient battlefield. Who are they going to rescue? Ouyang Lan or Insheng? Zhou Wen was alarmed as he hurriedly asked. It's none of your business who's being rescued. Shu Wen didn't wish to say much to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. He knew how dangerous the ancient battlefield was, which was why the Yin family had invited so many epic experts from outside. However, if Commander Lu and those low-ranking officers were to enter the ancient battlefield, it was basically equivalent to sending themselves to their deaths. Head Nurse Shu, I believe you still don't know that Ouyang Lan is actually my mother, right? I hope you can understand my feelings and tell me what happened, Zhou Wen said when he saw that Shu Wen wasn't willing to tell him what had happened. Who are you lying to? Madame Lan only has 2 children, Overseer and Miss Jing. Do you think you're the Overseer? Or Miss Jing? Shu Wen said with a pout. You should know about Ouyang Lan's remarriage, right? I'm her new husband's son. Who do you think I am to her? Zhou Wen asked. Shu Wen looked at Zhou Wen in disbelief. Article 265 of 1597. If it wasn't for my identity, why do you think Insheng wants all of you to take care of me? Seeing Shu Wen's hesitation, Zhou Wen went against his conscience and said, "My relationship with Ouyang Lan is very good, just like a biological mother and son. My concern for her is definitely no less than the Yin siblings. Can you tell me what happened?" Shu Wen hesitated for a moment. Believing that it wasn't much of a secret, she recounted the entire incident to Zhou Wen. After Zhou Wen heard that, he turned and walked out of the camp. Although Lu Yongxian was an epic expert, he didn't have many capable people under him. The low-level officers he had taken were basically at the legendary stage. With their abilities, it was too difficult to deal with the dimensional creatures on the ancient battlefield. Their survival had nothing to do with Zhou Wen, but if they couldn't retrieve the stone artifact, Ouyang Lan might very well die. It might even be possible that the former principal was also in the underground stone passageway, so Zhou Wen had no choice but to retrieve it. "Hey, where are you going?" Shu Wen hurriedly chased after Zhou Wen when she saw him heading outside the camp. "I'll help Commander Lu and the rest retrieve the stone artifact," Zhou Wen said. "Stop fooling around. You're just a student. Why are you messing around?" Shu Wen hurriedly stopped Zhou Wen. Lu Yongxian wanted her to watch over Zhou Wen, so she couldn't let him do anything rash. "Head Nurse Shu, you are the highest commander of the medical corps and also the best doctor. Why didn't you participate in this operation?" Zhou Wen asked Shu Wen. Shu Wen snorted and said, "It's all because of you. If it wasn't for the fact that I had to stay and take care of you, I would have definitely gone. So you should stay here obediently and stop causing trouble." "Then are you really not going? The ancient battlefield is fraught with danger. As the best medical personnel here, how can you stay behind and watch helplessly as your comrades die without doing anything? Comrades who can clearly live but will have to die because you weren't there. Can you really be at ease?" Zhou Wen stared at Shu Wen as he clearly enunciated each word. Shu Wen's expression changed slightly, but she still said, "Whatever you say is useless. We must stay in the camp and not go anywhere. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to Commander Lu, Adjutant In, and Madame Lan." "Commander Lu got you to protect me, right?" Zhou Wen said after some thought. "That's right." Shu Wen nodded. "He didn't say that I can't leave the military camp, right?" Zhou Wen asked again. "Well," Shu Wen hesitated. "Since he didn't say that I'm not allowed to go, and he wants you to protect me, that means that you will be going wherever I go, right?" Zhou Wen added. Shu Wen was slightly taken aback. "Then, do you want to go or not?" Zhou Wen stared at Shu Wen with a burning gaze. "No, I can't let you take the risk," Shu Wen struggled internally. "Let's go to the Blood River to take a look. We won't cross it. Waiting here is just too torturous. You wish to wait somewhere nearby, right?" Zhou Wen said with a sincere look. Well, Shu Wen was still very hesitant. "Anyway, I have to take a look. It's up to you to decide if you want to go." Zhou Wen walked around Shu Wen and walked towards the camp's entrance. Shu Wen gritted her teeth but didn't stop Zhou Wen as she chased him out of the camp. Shu Wen felt that a spoiled fellow like Zhou Wen, who stayed cooped up inside the encampment and ate supplementary tonics, definitely didn't have the guts to enter the ancient battlefield. The main reason she agreed was that she was also feeling anxious. If she were to continue waiting in the encampment, she would feel too uneasy. In fact, she wanted to go more than Zhou Wen. His words had already shaken her resolve. "How long do you think walking will take? Come on up." Shu Wen summoned a white lion. It was extremely majestic and was even taller than a horse. Zhou Wen originally wanted to summon his mount, but his mount wasn't very fast. It wasn't as fast as he ran, so it was useless. Seeing Shu Wen's white lion running quite quickly, Zhou Wen jumped up and sat behind her. Shu Wen ordered the white lion to run at full speed and chased in the direction that Commander Lu and the rest had gone. "Don't go too fast," Zhou Wen suddenly said to Shu Wen. Shu Wen was slightly taken aback before she understood what Zhou Wen meant. If they ran too quickly and ended up catching up with Commander Lu and company, they would definitely be chased back. Shu Wen grunted. When she saw the troops from afar, she slowed down a little. Shu Wen steered the white lion in front while Zhou Wen continued gaming. Ghost Bride had found the tunnel and stone steps in the ruins. However, there seemed to be some terrifying power inside that made Ghost Bride hesitate. Zhou Wen knew that Ghost Bride must have sensed something, but unfortunately, she couldn't express it. Zhou Wen could only vaguely sense that she was afraid of something and didn't dare enter the passageway. Since Ghost Bride didn't dare enter, Zhou Wen had no choice but to think of a way to enter. Ouyang Lan and the former principal might be trapped inside. Even if he didn't enter in the future, he knew that In Sheng would definitely enter. If he could find out ahead of time what danger was inside, he could warn In Sheng, so reducing their sacrifices and giving them a greater chance of rescuing Ouyang Lan and the former principal. What kind of power does the beheading in the ruins? Zhou Wen had already restarted the game a few times and had thought of many methods, but he still couldn't figure out what kind of power it was. Even Dr. Darkness's light of penetration couldn't detect any problems in the ruins. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before turning Dr. Darkness into his companion form. He saw that Dr. Darkness's body transformed into a beam of light that clung onto the blood-colored avatar like an illusion. Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback as he realized that in the blood-colored avatar's skill column there were skills, Scalpel, Fight Poison with Poison, and Light of Penetration. Dr. Darkness's soul state actually imbued his powers on the master, allowing the master to use them. Zhou Wen was delighted as he controlled the blood-colored avatar to head to the ruins again. Soon, he encountered a Wangliang. Zhou Wen knew how Dr. Darkness killed Wangliangs, so he activated Light of Penetration and shot a beam at it. Under the Light of Penetration, the Wangliang body seemed to turn transparent. All the meridians and organs within could be seen clearly. Zhou Wen immediately saw a tiny black bead rapidly flowing within the Wangliang. The bead was only the size of a rice grain and was extremely inconspicuous. It moved at an extremely fast speed, like a cardiograph. Furthermore, it didn't have any pattern, making it difficult to capture its trajectory. Zhou Wen immediately understood how to kill the Wangliang. With the ghost steps activated, Zhou Wen instantly appeared behind the Wangliang. With Scalpel, a white beam of light condensed into a scalpel and instantly pierced through the Wangliang's body and struck the beating bead. Bam! As soon as the bead broke apart, the Wangliang's body collapsed into a pool of black liquid that sprayed onto the ground. The game also gave the notification that he had killed an epic Wangliang. As long as I can understand the abilities and weaknesses of an epic creature, it's not impossible for me to kill them with my present strength. Zhou Wen increasingly felt the importance of knowing himself as well as the enemy. Article 266 of 1597. Chapter 266. Are you nuts? Both banks of the Blood River were two completely different worlds. On one side, the weather was perfect, while on the other side, there was a bloody storm that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Mountains and rivers were dyed with blood, as though they were in hell. When Zhou Wen and Xu Wen arrived at the Blood River bank, Lu Yunxian had already led the officers across the river. Head Nurse Xu, why are you here? A low-ranking officer who was staying behind quickly greeted Xu Wen when he saw her. It's a little unsettling to stay in the garrison. Let's just wait here for Commander Lu and the rest to return, Xu Wen said as she sized up the interior of the vehicle. Although she felt that she shouldn't cross the river and had to obey orders and take care of Zhou Wen, she couldn't help but look inside the car, hoping to find the remaining custom raincoats. Without the custom raincoat, one wasn't able to move an inch in the blood rain. Upon contact with the raindrops, they would become lunatics. Entering would be suicide. Unfortunately, the number of custom raincoats was limited. Ouyang Lan and In Sheng had taken 2 batches away one after another. There weren't many left after that. Lu Yunxian and the others had only obtained about 10 sets, so only about 10 people had crossed the river. The others could only wait here to receive them. Without any custom raincoat left, Xu Wen felt extremely disappointed. It was impossible for her to even think about crossing the river now. Zhou Wen stood by the blood river and looked at the blood rain with mixed emotions. Before he came to Zuolu, he believed that he definitely wouldn't enter the ancient battlefield. All he needed to do was game outside and provide some help. But now, he had to cross the river and enter that terrifying place personally. I hope there's no need to use the words left behind by teacher. Zhou Wen didn't think it would be too dangerous. He had already gained a better understanding of the ancient battlefield in-game. As long as he didn't enter the ruins, there wouldn't be too much danger. Do you have any more raincoats left? Zhou Wen asked the officer. Xu Wen said, the number of raincoats we have is too limited. There wasn't enough for Commander Lu and the rest, so how can there be any left? Don't think too much. Just wait here for Commander Lu and the rest to return. With Commander Lu and Adjutant An's abilities, they will definitely be able to save Madame Lan and old Mr. Ouyang and return safely with them. Zhou Wen stood by the blood river and looked at the other side of the river before saying slowly, you're right. Ah Sheng and company are both excellent. Perhaps they can return safely. With that said, Zhou Wen paused for a moment as the luster in his eyes gradually turned sharp. Then, he said, unfortunately, I'm a person who doesn't like gambling. I can't sit here and wait for the needle of a wheel of fortune to stop. I can't watch the needle waver between luckiness and unluckiness. I want to control the needle and wheel and make them stop at the position I want. The more Xu Wen processed what he said, the more she felt that something was amiss. Just as her expression changed slightly and she was about to say something, she saw Zhou Wen run towards the blood river, his body wrapped in black armor. In a few steps, he reached the edge of the river bank and leapt up, flitting across the river. Xu Wen and company were shocked. Without any hesitation, Xu Wen reached out and grabbed an umbrella beside her. At the same time, she summoned a strange bird that was shimmering with lightning. The strange lightning bird transformed into a pair of wings and landed behind her. Although Zhou Wen was wearing armor, the armor couldn't protect his entire body, so there would still be blood rain touching him. To Xu Wen, Zhou Wen's actions were akin to having a death wish. The lightning wings on Xu Wen's back flapped as she instantly streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning. She caught up with Zhou Wen, who was about to enter the blood rain. She grabbed his shoulder and opened the umbrella to block the falling rain. Are you nuts? Zhou Wen looked at Xu Wen in puzzlement. It was impossible for the umbrella to block all the blood rain. Furthermore, Xu Wen was mainly using the umbrella to cover Zhou Wen's body, so many blood rain droplets splattered onto her body. Although she had already summoned her armor-type companion beast to protect her, she was unable to envelop her entire body with it. A few raindrops of blood splattered onto her cheeks. Zhou Wen couldn't understand why Xu Wen would do that. She had nothing to do with him, and she didn't even seem to like him. Yet, she had risked her life to rush over. This was something Zhou Wen couldn't understand. You are the one who's nuts. Go back with me. Shu Wen grabbed Zhou Wen and exerted her strength with her wings, trying to fly back to the other side. However, she still underestimated the blood rain's infectious ability. In an instant, her eyes turned red as though they were about to drip blood. Her consciousness suddenly blurred as she nearly caused Shu Wen to fall into the blood river. With just a tiny bit of rationality left, Shu Wen threw Zhou Wen across the river as she landed by the side of the river of blood. She stood motionless in the rain with an umbrella in hand, knowing that she couldn't return. Just wait patiently for Commander Lu and the rest to come back. You're not a child anymore. Don't always give others trouble. No one can keep protecting you. Shu Wen's voice gradually turned hoarse and her eyes gradually turned ferocious. Blood had already begun to flow out of them. Bastard. You bastard. When the officer on the other side saw this scene, he felt like tearing Zhou Wen apart as he roared angrily. Zhou Wen was in the air as he looked at Shu Wen with an odd expression. He was an emotionally indifferent person, so he couldn't understand why Shu Wen would do such a thing for a stranger she didn't like. But at that moment, he didn't want her to die. As though stepping on empty space, his body circled around like a bird. In midair, he charged towards the opposite bank like an arrow, shooting towards Shu Wen, who was holding an umbrella. When Shu Wen saw Zhou Wen returning in midair again, she wanted to say something, but her consciousness turned blurry as violent emotions filled her mind. Kill. 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 Shu Wen only wanted to kill and see blood. Any living thing in her eyes appeared filthy to her. It was as if only killing and blood could make her feel comfortable. Boom. She threw the umbrella in her hand and allowed it to fall to the ground. Pressing her palms together as the pair of wings behind her crackled with lightning, she struck out with both her hands as though she was enveloped by lightning. A lightning beam then shot towards Zhou Wen. The officers on the other side watched as this scene unfolded, but they could not do anything. The distress drove them nuts. From their point of view, Zhou Wen was definitely doomed facing such an attack from Shu Wen in midair. Even if he was lucky to not die from the attack, he would end up like Shu Wen the moment he landed in the blood river. The azure lightning snaked at Zhou Wen as if it was about to swallow him. However, in everyone's line of sight, Zhou Wen's figure suddenly blurred as he vanished into thin air, leaving the officers stunned. By the time they saw Zhou Wen again, they realized that he was already standing on the other side of the river. He was standing behind Shu Wen, emitting a faint white light. He held onto the umbrella that was about to fall to the ground with one hand and holding something in his other hand. He then stabbed Shu Wen directly in the neck. The red-eyed Shu Wen immediately turned limp as Zhou Wen held an umbrella in one hand and held Shu Wen in the other. He leapt into the air and returned to the opposite shore like a hawk. Article 267 of 1597. Don't come over. Zhou Wen shouted coldly as he stopped the officers who were rushing over. He placed Shu Wen, who was moaning in pain, on the ground and said, "Do you have water? Bring me some water." The officers looked at Zhou Wen, who was covered in blood, and their eyes looked odd and complicated. They had no way of connecting him to the former prodigal student. Yes. One of the officers answered and quickly brought a water bottle over. Just throw it over and bring some more, Zhou Wen said. The officer quickly threw the water bottle over and the other officers quickly went to get more water too. Shu Wen felt as though her entire body was being stabbed by needles. She was so uncomfortable that she couldn't say a word. However, her mind was a lot clearer. She watched as Zhou Wen used water to wash the blood rain from her face and hair before finally washing the blood rain from her armor. Then, he lifted her up and placed her on a clean patch of grass. She will recover in a while. Take good care of her. Zhou Wen glanced at Shu Wen before standing up and flying across the river again. Shu Wen endured the pain as she pressed her hands against the ground to support her upper body. Seeing Zhou Wen's figure disappear into the blood rain, an inexplicable expression appeared on her face. The officers surrounded her and asked, "Head nurse Shu, are you alright?" "I'm fine." Shu Wen was still in great pain, but she could feel that her condition was improving. She didn't know how Zhou Wen had done it. Up to this point, they had yet to come up with a method to effectively resist the blood rain. One could withstand the blood rain only if their physique was strong enough at the epic stage coupled with some protective primordial energy skills. Once someone was infected by the blood rain, there was no proper treatment. As the head nurse, Shu Wen knew how terrifying the blood rain was. However, not only was Zhou Wen able to ignore the virus in the blood rain, but he was also able to remove the blood rain's virus from her body. This left her feeling incredulous. There was no way to connect Zhou Wen with the prodigal student who stayed cooped up all day gaming and consuming tonics. Could it be that as long as one enters the In family, those who aren't surnamed In will become strange? Another figure appeared in Shu Wen's mind. It was a harmless-looking man who always wore a smile. Zhou Wen was extremely similar to the man she had met back then. Zhou Wen quickly proceeded through the blood rain. He had to quickly catch up with Liu Yunxian and company and track them down to find that Kai. After hearing Shu Wen's description, Zhou Wen knew that the entity that swallowed the stone artifact was definitely a Kai. They were unable to see anything in the blood rain, but Zhou Wen could use Truth Listener's powers to grasp his surroundings. Soon, he found Commander Liu and company. However, to Zhou Wen's surprise, Commander Liu and company hadn't gone far. They were proceeding forward very slowly. Although they were wearing custom raincoats, the blood rain had affected their visibility. They didn't dare move too quickly, afraid that they might bump into dimensional creatures. Once their raincoats were torn, they would die. Zhou Wen didn't know where the Kai was, so he could only follow them patiently. Thankfully, there was the blood rain. Zhou Wen didn't need to stay too far from them, nor did he need to hide himself too much. All he needed to do was follow them since no one could discover him in the blood rain. With an umbrella in hand, Zhou Wen slowly proceeded through the blood rain while observing the situation ahead. If they encountered other dimensional creatures, Zhou Wen had to ensure their safety to ensure that they could find the Kai that had swallowed the stone artifact. Lu Yangxian wore a heavy expression as he proceeded through the blood rain. Even at the epic stage, he only had a visibility range of 10 meters. He was blind to anything further. Under such circumstances, it was as if they were in a dangerous forest. The blood rain around them was like a dense bush, and it was possible for a venomous snake to jump out of it at any time. Even Lu Yangxian himself was terrified, let alone those legendary officers. Suddenly, Lu Yangxian felt a chill run down his spine as an ominous feeling arose in his heart. He immediately shouted, "Be careful. There might be an enemy attack." Lu Yangxian believed in his intuition. This was something forged over the years while on the battlefield. Although it wasn't necessarily accurate, it had saved his life many times. The group looked around, but it was useless. The blood rain affected their vision, preventing them from seeing anything. Lu Yangxian tried his best to look forward, but no matter how he tried, the raindrops quickly blurred the scenes. He vaguely made out a figure walking in front of him. He took a careful look, but he couldn't confirm the figure. "Who's that in front? Say something if you are human." Lu Yangxian shouted, but no one answered him except for the sound of rain. However, as the figure approached, Lu Yun finally saw it clearly. It was a strange person with black hair hanging low. He was drenched in the blood rain and his skin was stained with blood. It was certain that even if he was human, he was probably a monster now. "That's a ghost." "A ghost," Lu Chengzi immediately shouted as he saw the figure, his voice filled with fear. "Vanguard team, attack." Lu Yangxian summoned his companion beast. It was a stone golem that could withstand the power of the blood rain. The other officers also summoned the few companion beasts that could withstand the blood rain as they charged alongside the stone golem. The few companion beasts used their various abilities to attack the strange person that was slowly walking through the blood rain. The epic stone golem in particular struck the strange person's head with a terrifying punch. Bam! The strange person's head exploded before his entire body exploded, splattering into black liquid. The group of officers cheered, but halfway through their cheers their faces froze. This was because the companion beasts that were stained with the black liquid appeared to be snow that made contact with burning charcoal as they emitted large amounts of white gas. A few legendary companion beasts instantly melted into a pool of liquid. The stone golem's body was riddled with holes from the corrosion and its arms were cracked apart. One of its legs corroded and broke off as it fell into the pool of blood. Under the horrified gazes of the group, the black liquid once again coagulated into the black-haired person who had half his face covered by black hair. He opened his mouth and gave them a silent and eerie laugh. It left everyone's scalp tingling as they suffered goosebumps. They wished they could immediately turn around and flee. However, as soldiers, although they were terrified, they still raised their weapons and launched their most intense attack on the strange person the moment they heard Lu Yangxian's order. The sword and saber beams crisscrossed as Lu Yangxian's punch was as violent as a volcanic eruption. It was the most domineering strike under his life soul fire general's augmentation. It could even melt solid gold. Article 268 of 1597. The strange person's figure rapidly moved like a wandering spirit amidst the attack. He appeared and disappeared randomly like a ghost, causing all the attacks to miss. Lu Yangxian's domineering explosive punch created a ravine that was more than 10 meters long, evaporating large amounts of blood, but it didn't damage the strange person at all. Ah! One of the officers retreated in shock. The strange person had appeared in front of him and his eyes were completely black without any white. He looked at him through his hair and left him horrified. He couldn't help but scream and retreat. However, the strange person's hand had already grabbed at his neck, his hand like a ghastly claw. "How dare you!" Lu Yangxian threw out a tempestuous punch as the flames roared out like a tiger. However, the strange person's figure disappeared in the blood rain. When he appeared again, he was behind the officer. His ghastly claws were just moments from grabbing the officer's head. Instantly, everyone felt a chill rise in their hearts. They knew very well that with one death, it would only be a matter of time before all of them were wiped out. If one couldn't find a way to defeat the dimensional creature, they would easily be wiped out. The only way out was to escape. Lu Yangxian also knew this very well. Therefore, he had already prepared to give the order to retreat, hoping that as many of them could escape as possible. He would then hold back this terrifying dimensional creature alone. He was willing to sacrifice his life. Just as the strange person's claws were about to grab the young officer's head, a bright beam of light shone from afar and landed on the strange person. Under the light, the strange person subconsciously raised his hands to block his face. Then, he looked in the direction of the bright light. "All of you, move back." When a voice sounded, the officer finally reacted and rushed out of the strange person's range. The other officers, including Lu Yunxian, subconsciously retreated a distance. Hum. With a resonating hum, a bamboo blade streaked through the sky, tearing through the blood rain and stabbing straight into the strange person's body. Then, the strange person's body transformed into a pool of black liquid that scattered to the ground. The bamboo blade was left diagonally embedded in the land that was covered by the blood rain. However, unlike before, the strange person didn't revive again. Instead, he gradually mixed with the blood rain and seeped into the mud. Lu Yunxian and company looked in the direction of the bamboo blade. They didn't know who had saved them. However, Lu Yun found the voice rather familiar. He also seemed to have seen this strange bamboo blade somewhere before, but he couldn't recall where. Soon, they saw a figure walking across the pool of blood. That person was holding an umbrella in his hand, but he wasn't wearing the heavy and bulky custom raincoat they were wearing. That person was only wearing ordinary black armor as he walked through the blood. His body had made contact with the blood, but he wasn't infected by the blood rain's virus. Lu Yunxian couldn't help but sigh in amazement, thinking that the person holding the umbrella in front of him must be an extremely powerful epic expert. Lu Yunxian noticed that the umbrella looked familiar. After some careful thought, he realized that he also had one. However, he had left it in the jeep and not brought it along. It would be useless in a place like this. The person with the umbrella walked to the bamboo blade that was diagonally planted into the ground. He reached out to pull it out and sheathed it. As his face was obscured by the umbrella, Lu Yunxian couldn't see his face clearly. He gave a standard military salute and said, "Thank you for saving us, my friend. I wonder if you can leave a name." "I, Lu Yunxian from the Sunset Army's 7th Brigade, 3rd Battalion, am eternally grateful. I will definitely repay you someday." Upon hearing Lu Yunxian speak, the person looked up at him. The umbrella slightly tilted up and Lu Yunxian finally saw the person's face clearly. Then, he was completely stunned. His mouth was wide open at a loss for words. Not only Lu Yunxian, but all the officers from the three camps widened their eyes in disbelief as they looked at the face that was revealed under the umbrella. They were all dumbfounded. The blood rain continued to fall, but apart from that, there was a dead silence. "Commander Lu, there's not much time left. Let's hurry up and find the dimensional creature that swallowed the stone artifact." Zhou Wen walked forward with the bamboo blade in hand. He originally didn't want to show his face, but Lu Yunxian and the others were clearly no match against the Wangliang. In fact, Lu Yunxian's strength wasn't inferior to that of the Wangliang, especially with his fire powers being effective against it. However, in this boundless blood rain, his fire elemental powers were greatly suppressed, while the Wangliang was greatly augmented. Just its ability to travel through liquid greatly increased its speed, preventing Lu Yunxian's attack from being able to touch it. "Young Master Wen, Adjutant ordered me to take good care of you and absolutely not allow you to step into the ancient battlefield." The way Lu Yunxian addressed Zhou Wen was the same as before, but be it his tone or attitude, they were now completely different. Soldiers obeyed orders and respected experts. In the past, they viewed Zhou Wen as a prodigal scion. Therefore, no matter how honorable Zhou Wen's identity was, they didn't treat him with any respect. However, Zhou Wen had come to the ancient battlefield alone and killed the dimensional creature that they were helpless against. He had even saved one of their comrades' lives. These feats immediately earned their respect. "But I'm already here, right?" Zhou Wen looked at Lu Chengzi and asked, "How far is it from where you encountered that dimensional creature?" "There's still about 5 kilometers left," Lu Chengzi answered subconsciously. "Commander Lu, if it's possible, let your subordinates return to the other side of the Blood River. You, Lu Chengzi, and I can then travel light and proceed at full speed. We have to use the shortest time to retrieve the stone artifact," Zhou Wen said to Lu Yunxian. Being in a place like this was no different from suicide for these legendary officers. "Young Master Wen, take us along. We are not afraid of death. We can scout the path for you. Young Master Wen, take us along. We can help." Before Lu Yunxian could say anything, the officers immediately cried out, showing their extreme agitation. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. He really didn't understand what was going through these people's minds. It was as if it was a glorious thing to send themselves to their deaths. Perhaps the saying is right. The kind of leadership determines the type of followers. Judging from how Xu Wen, Lu Yunxian, and the rest act, I can imagine what kind of leader they have. Zhou Wen suddenly felt that the man he never took seriously might be more terrifying than he imagined. Zhou Wen had no idea how a leader could make a soldier be willing to die. At the very least, he couldn't, nor did he want to do it. Immediately return to the Blood River and make preparations for any rescued casualties. That's an order. Lu Yunxian knew that he had been too idealistic previously. Legendary officers and their companion beasts were useless here. The primordial gold firearms were almost useless. Letting them stay behind would be no different from sending them to their deaths. He strictly ordered the officers to return the way they had come, leaving Lu Chengzi and Zhou Wen behind. Lu Yunxian looked at Zhou Wen and said, "Young Master Wen, I have a question for you. Please answer me truthfully." Article 269 of 1597. "What?" Zhou Wen frowned. "Did you plan on entering the ancient battlefield before you came to Zuzuo? Or did you decide on it at the last minute?" Lu Yunxian asked. Is there a difference if I already had a plan? Zhou Wen asked. Yes. If you had already made a plan, you would naturally have made a lot of preparations. It wouldn't be as easy to die here. If it's just a spur of the moment, I will send you back no matter what, said Lu Yongxian. I have indeed made a lot of preparations. It shouldn't be that easy to die. Let's go. We don't have time to waste. We need to find the stone artifact and take it to the ruins as soon as possible. Zhou Wen looked at Lu Chengzi and said, lead the way. Just walk forward. If I don't say stop, continue walking. Lu Chengzi nodded. Due to Zhou Wen's arrival, the fear in his heart lessened significantly. They had previously encountered the Wangliang, and many had died. However, Zhou Wen had easily killed one. This did plenty to assuage his fear. The trio continued on. Although they were fewer in number, the atmosphere was not as oppressive as before. Lu Yongxian watched as Zhou Wen walked ahead with the umbrella open. He found it somewhat odd, having no way of connecting this Zhou Wen to the one he had known previously. Stop. Lu Yongxian suddenly heard Zhou Wen's voice and hurriedly stopped to look at him. Seeing Zhou Wen staring ahead, he traced Zhou Wen's gaze and saw nothing but the blood rain. Lu Chengzi, retreat now. Zhou Wen walked in front of Lu Chengzi and pulled out his bamboo blade. When the rain hit the blade, not a drop remained on it as they streaked straight down. Even in the rain, the bamboo blade remained untainted as it shimmered with a cold glint. After a while, Lu Yongxian saw another strange person walk through the rain and approach them. It looked identical to the strange person they had met earlier. He couldn't help but be put on alert as he gathered his strength to prepare for battle. Zhou Wen immediately moved as his eyes shot out a light beam that shone down on the strange person's body. In the next second, Zhou Wen's figure had vanished. When he appeared again, the bamboo blade pierced through the strange person's body, causing it to explode into a mass of black liquid. A dimensional crystal dropped as a result. Lu Yongxian glanced at Zhou Wen as he found it increasingly bizarre. He wondered if Zhou Wen really was a student at the legendary stage. In this terrifying place where even an epic stage expert was treading on thin ice, he seemed to be in control of everything. He could easily kill a dimensional creature that even he was helpless against with a swing of his saber. Let's continue, Zhou Wen said to Lu Chengzi as he picked up the dimensional crystal. Yes, young Master Wen. Lu Chengzi was a lot more spirited. After responding, he took large strides forward, the fear in his heart seemingly lessened. During the rest of the journey, Zhou Wen and company didn't encounter any dimensional creatures. There weren't many dimensional creatures on the ancient battlefield to begin with, but every one of them was terrifying and had their own unique traits. If it wasn't for Zhou Wen's deep understanding of them that he gleaned from the game as well as knowing the method to counter these dimensional creatures, the three of them would have long died. After walking for more than 5 kilometers, they still didn't see any signs of the Kai which Lu Chengzi had mentioned. It was unknown if Lu Chengzi had led them in the wrong direction or if that Kai had already gone somewhere else. Old Lu, how much farther do we have to go? Lu Yongxian also felt that they had gone too far and asked. Lu Chengzi scratched his head and said, we should have already reached the area where we encountered it, but for some reason, we didn't see any traces of it. When Lu Chengzi said that, Zhou Wen and Lu Yongxian felt that something was amiss. If that Kai had really left this area, where could they find it when the ancient battlefield was so huge? Besides, there wasn't only one Kai on the battlefield. How would they know which one was the one that swallowed the stone artifact? Don't walk any further. Let's try to search the vicinity. The Chimwangliang that Zhou Wen encountered in the game all loitered in a fixed area. They didn't wander off too far. However, this was reality and not a game. No one knew if the Kai would remain here. The three of them adjusted their direction slightly and searched the surrounding ruins. After searching in trepidation for a while, Zhou Wen was pleasantly surprised to find a Kai. However, after seeing the Kai, Zhou Wen frowned and said to Lu Chengzi, confirm if it's that monster who swallowed the stone artifact you brought back. Zhou Wen had seen many Kai in-game. They were mostly identical in appearance, so there was no difference. However, this Kai was clearly different from the ones Zhou Wen had seen. Typically, they were all in black-scaled armor. Although they looked strange, they looked like living beings. The Kai in front of him was different. Its body was grayish-white and it looked like a stone sculpture. If it hadn't slowly walked over, Zhou Wen definitely wouldn't have believed it to be a living thing. Lu Chengzi couldn't see it at first. Only when the Kai came closer did he finally see it clearly. His face was filled with puzzlement. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem wrong, but the one we saw looked like a living thing. Why does this one look like a stone statue? The moment Lu Chengzi said that, the Kai roared as a gray flame rose from its body. Then, Zhou Wen and company felt the ground quake violently. No good. Quick dodge. Zhou Wen flew up and, at the instant his feet left the ground, stone spears pierced out from the ground. Lu Yongxian and Lu Chengzi jumped up as well, dodging the sharp stone spears. They did not have the ability to withstand the blood rain. If they were stabbed by the spears, even if they survived it, they would probably still be dead if their custom raincoats were damaged. Zhou Wen was alarmed and puzzled. This Kai was somewhat different from what he had seen in the game. It even had different skills. The Kai roared as it charged forward. As he didn't know anything about it, Zhou Wen didn't dare to forcefully fight it. He summoned the three-eyed golden warrior, hoping to test the strange Chiz powers. Although the three-eyed golden warrior was only at the legendary stage, it had the life providence of golden body and the invulnerable golden power skill. Previously, it had been able to withstand 2 to 3 blows from a Kai in-game without dying. Seeing the three-eyed golden warrior standing in its way, the Kai rolled its eyes and shot out 2 blurry gray beams of light that shot straight at it. Seeing another skill he had never seen before, Joen immediately felt ominous. However, it was already too late for him to dismiss the three-eyed golden warrior. When the light landed, its body cracked like tempered glass. In the next second, it was reduced to fragments that fell all over the ground. It had been killed. Article 270 of 1597. Joen felt his heart wince in pain. Although the three-eyed golden warrior was only a legendary pet, it was extremely rare. Furthermore, it was a tank. Joen had always used it to scout in-game, so with him dead, it was impossible for him to revive like in-game. Joen's tattoo that represented the three-eyed golden warrior also vanished. It made Joen realize that this wasn't a game and he only had one life. If he died, that was it. Lu Yunxian let out a roar and struck out with an explosive flaming fist. The terrifying flames charged towards the stone Kai like a ferocious tiger. A light beam shot out from the stone Chi's eyes once again and collided with the flaming tiger. A violent explosion occurred in the air and the flaming tiger and light beam dissipated together. Flames burst out from Lu Yunxian's body as though a flaming general had possessed him. He continuously released flames with his fists, each punch like a ferocious tiger pounce as they rushed towards the stone Kai. Although the light beam the stone Kai shot out was powerful, the speed at which it shot was relatively slow. The time gap between shots was a little long, so it was unable to withstand the numerous flaming tiger punches. Seeing that more than 10 flaming tigers were about to hit it, it roared and the gray gas over its body condensed into a grayish-white stone dragon. The stone dragon opened its mouth and took a deep breath before swallowing the flaming tigers. It didn't even make a sound, as though its stomach was a bottomless abyss. Although the power of the stone dragon life soul was terrifying, Joen had already seen it in-game. He wasn't surprised, but instead glad to see something he knew. At the very least, this strange stone Kai still retained some of its powers and characteristics. It was not completely different. Joen didn't have any intention of helping Lu Yunxian in the battle against the stone Kai. Instead, all he did was watch from the side. After all, he was only at the legendary stage. Before he figured out the stone Chi's strengths and weaknesses, even if he went up to help, it would not be of much use. It might even affect Lu Yunxian's performance. Sometimes, appropriate observation could be more efficient than direct combat. Joen waited patiently by the side for an opportunity. Lu Yunxian was indeed the commander of a battalion. His flaming powers were extremely tempestuous. Other than being a little slow, the other aspects were considered quite impressive amongst those at the epic stage. Furthermore, with the augmentation of the flaming general life soul, Lu Yunxian kept striking out with the flaming tiger fist without any signs of primordial energy depletion. The man and Kai fought an intense battle, but the stone Kai clearly held the upper hand. The stone dragon life soul on its body could devour all of Lu Yunxian's flaming tiger punches with a single inhale. It looked like it was completely effortless. Fortunately, the stone dragon wasn't able to redirect the attacks like the purple air bells. It just swallowed the attack, otherwise it would have been even more terrifying. The stone Kai was unable to break through Lu Yunxian's flaming tiger fist and became a little irritable. It actually tried to charge at Lu Yunxian, slamming straight into the flaming tiger fist. It ended up retreating from the blow, but its body didn't suffer any damage. With a roar, it rushed over again. The stone dragon swallowed and the light in the stone Chi's eyes shone out gray rays. It forcefully broke through the airtightness of the flaming tiger fist and slammed into Lu Yunxian. Lu Yunxian hurriedly summoned a few companion beasts because his best stone golem had already died in the previous battle. Although the few that he could use weren't bad, they weren't as good as the stone golem. The stone Kai wreaked havoc as its gigantic claws ripped at him while sweeping its eye rays across. In moments all the companion beasts that Lu Yunxian summoned were killed. Joen was secretly alarmed when he saw this. The stone Kai hadn't used the black smoke skill of ordinary Kai. This left Joen somewhat helpless. When in-game, Joen used the purple air bells to absorb the black smoke from the Kai before letting it have a taste of its own medicine. The black smoke possessed powerful hypnotic powers that even the Kai couldn't withstand. Therefore, Joen was able to easily kill the Kai. However, this stone Kai hadn't released any black smoke skills the entire time. Joen had no way of absorbing it even if he wanted to. Now all I can do is absorb the stone Chi's gray ray. Seeing that Lu Yunxian was no longer able to put up a fight, Joen couldn't wait any longer. He summoned the purple air bell and, with a flash, arrived beside Lu Yunxian. The stone Chi's ray was directed at Lu Yunxian, so when Joen appeared in front of him, he raised the purple air bell to meet the incoming gray ray. Immediately, he saw a blurry light shoot into the interior of the bell as though it had been slurped up like noodles. Then, Joen held the bell and shook it at the stone Kai. A thick gray pillar of light spewed out from the bell's mouth as it shot towards the stone Kai. Bam! The ray shot out from the stone Chi's eyes clashed with the pillar of light from the bell. However, it was shattered. Just as the light pillar was about to land on its body. The stone dragon life soul let out a roar as it opened its mouth and inhaled. It swallowed the pillar of light, averting any harm to the stone Kai. Indeed, it doesn't work. Zhou Wen was somewhat depressed. Previously, when he used black smoke to deal with the Kai, if the black dragon life soul were to suck the black smoke, it too would fall into a slumber. Now, there were none of the benefits. Lu Yongxian took the opportunity to attack the stone Kai, but his attacks failed to be effective. Zhou Wen relied on his purple air bell's powers to absorb the stone Chi's rays as he joined forces with Lu Yongxian. All he could do was hold back the stone Kai, but killing it was nearly impossible. Before long, Lu Yongxian's punches began to weaken. Although he was augmented by Flaming General, his primordial energy consumption was just too high. He could not hold on much longer. Zhou Wen allowed Dr. Darkness to possess him as he used Light of Penetration to illuminate the stone Kai, but the result left Zhou Wen alarmed. Under Light of Penetration, the stone Chi's body was covered in a gray blur that prevented him from seeing through anything. What's going on? Why can't I see through it? Zhou Wen was alarmed and puzzled. Previously, when he was fighting Wangliangs and Kais, he could use the Light of Penetration to observe their body's interior. But now, it was completely ineffective. It could only mean that this stone Kai was extraordinary. Could it be that this stone Kai is the Kai that devoured the stone artifact? The stone artifact affected it, making it undergo such a strange mutation. Zhou Wen secretly guessed. At that moment, the stone Chi's patience seemed to be completely worn out by the duo. It roared as the stone dragon emitted a dragon roar before spewing out a mouthful of gray smoke. The gray smoke looked like the normal black dragon's black smoke, but the color was a little different. Zhou Wen didn't have the luxury of time to think. He raised the purple air bell and sucked in the gray smoke as he saw it surge into the purple air bell's interior. Article 271 of 1597.